Well, good morning, San Francisco. My name is Jonathan McCrae. I have the great pleasure of being your host and MC over the next 2 days. This is our first World Summit AI in the United States, and we're so glad to be here in the spiritual home of AI, San Francisco. San Francisco, make some noise! That was okay. So this isn't my first time here. 1995, exactly 30 years ago, I lived in the Tenderloin with 6 other Irish guys in a 1-bedroom apartment and 8,000 cockroaches. And the city hasn't changed a huge amount. There's still bread bowls and Pier 39. But one thing has changed, and that is, technology, right? So I took a Waymo here, and it was my first time. I know you're all very used to it, but for me, it was a feeling of great wonder. But then, as that feeling subsided, something struck me. I was in this thing, and there was no one at the wheel, and it was driving pretty fast. And I thought, someone could get hurt here if someone makes a mistake. But that wasn't my overriding feeling. My overriding feeling was, this is so cool. And if there isn't a better metaphor for the state of AI in industry right now, I don't know what is. So before we get started, I'm going to go through a few things. As Sarah mentioned, the Inspired Minds app is a great way for you to connect with each other. You can do the Tinder thing, swipe left, swipe right, and you can make meetings through the app. If you haven't done so already, please complete your profile, and that'll give you more sophisticated matches. You should have received an email with joining instructions and your unique password. It will also be where you can replay on demand for the entire conference. If you want to connect to the Wi-Fi, please use the Network World Summit and enter the password SANFRAN, capital S, capital F, 25. Don't forget to tweet your heart out. That's hashtag WSAI USA, World Summit AI. Let's do one now. Big smiles, everybody. 3, 2, 1. All right. I will post that now in a minute. So big thank you to WECA, our headline sponsor. SAP and AREA, our global partners, MCIT, our strategic partner, NVIDIA, our training and certification partner. If you want to be in a documentary, you might want to visit the Scream Room, where you can vent your anger for entertainment right at the back. Don't ask me about it, but you'll find it right at the entrance. For breaks, coffee and tea can be found at the catering points in the exhibition area. Lunch can be bought at the food trucks outside, or there's a cafe in Building C. After the first break, main stage presentations will continue here in this room, but we'll be running some of our great workshops in the back of the room. So you go out here, take your left, go around the side of the pier, and you'll find signage for tracks 1 and 2. If there is a need to evacuate, it's everyone for themselves. That's a joke. You'll be shown how to evacuate, and we congregate in the car park in front of the building. Now, let's get things started, right? We're really excited because we have a renowned opening headliner who's going to be talking about AI in the age of geopolitical tensions, power, policy, and progress. This woman is an internationally recognized expert on disinformation and democratization. She's one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in AI. She's written 2 books, How to Lose the Information War and How to Be a Woman Online. She's advised governments, international organizations, and tech companies, testified before US Congress. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. The UK, Canadian, and European parliaments. We're thrilled to have us here with us today, and please give a warm round of applause for co-founder and CEO of the American Sunlight Project, Nina Jankowicz.
Good morning, everybody. I am thrilled to be here opening up this wonderful summit. I do think that Inspired Minds does AI differently, so I couldn't be more pleased to be here today. I have the very chill and easy topic of AI in the age of geopolitical tensions. We definitely don't have any of those right now, right? Nothing happened this weekend that was raising the tensions. That's a joke. You can all laugh. Let's try it. Ha, ha, ha. Well, I am unfortunately not going to talk about what happened this weekend. Our slide decks were due before all of that happened. But I am going to talk a little bit about the year of elections. Around this time last year, we were all being told this is the year of elections. More than half of the world's population has the chance to go cast a ballot. 70 countries, 2 billion people. And in most of those headlines, we were also told AI might disrupt these elections. Our democracies are in danger because of the accessibility of generative artificial intelligence. Now let's take a little meander through some of the headlines that we did see related to artificial intelligence. The first indication that AI might disrupt the elections was actually in 2023. The first election that sort of kicked off the year of elections of 2024 was in Slovakia. And there, the leader of a political party was inserted into an audio deepfake with a conversation with a journalist where he was talking about rigging the election there. Now, he and the journalist both disavowed the recording immediately. It was proven to be false, but it went viral anyway. I have a theory about that. In the recording, the candidate also said that he was going to be raising the price of beer in Slovakia, which is a cardinal sin, I think, not only in Slovakia, but anywhere in the world. That being said, this deepfake did not have an impact on the elections, according to many experts. Slovakians are naturally distrusting folks, and there were a lot more other tensions and, movements at play that changed the course of that election, not necessarily this deepfake. We also had deepfakes surface in the UK, where Keir Starmer was meant to be embarrassed in internal Labour Party discussions. Of course, he was still elected. The Labour Party sailed to victory in the UK. In Pakistan, Imran Khan, the former prime minister, also was inserted into a deepfake audio clip where he encouraged people to boycott the elections, also proven as false. And of course, here in the United States, we had our own set of deepfakes during the election. We had President Joe Biden deepfaked into another audio clip in which he encouraged New Hampshire voters not to vote in their primaries. Again, quickly debunked. There was criminal action taken against the people behind it. And then Elon Musk, on his own platform, which, by the way, has rules against artificial intelligence-created content, he did not label it, he used AI-generated audio on a Kamala Harris parody campaign ad. All of these things happened. They all caused harm, but did they throw the elections? No, not really. Not the way that we were told. We were all warned about the AI apocalypse, right? That there might be a candidate or a world leader or some bad actor who deepfakes a nuclear threat and we end up all in nuclear Armageddon. Or that a candidate would be deepfaked into a concession speech when actually they didn't concede an election yet. None of that stuff happened. But that doesn't mean bad actors weren't using AI. They are. Just really not the way that we were told. Let me explain. So Russia, which is the country that I've studied for my entire career, is pretty skilled in influence operations, right? We know this from not only government disclosures, but from open source documentation and research that's done by organizations like mine, the American Sunlight Project. Last summer, in June, the Department of Justice let us know that Russia had used an AI-enabled influence operation for what it seemed like was the first time. What does AI-enabled mean in this context? Well, Russia used AI-generated avatars with GAN-generated images. No longer did we have those little eggs on Twitter, right? They used AI-generated content in their tweets, their posts, etc., and they used AI to determine the most successful, most useful time to post that content and how to target it. So that's an AI-generated influence operation. We also have the curious case of CopyCop. John Mark Dugan, a disaffected American who moved to Moscow and is now a propagandist for Putin. What he does is create fake news websites, and that's not a term I use very readily, but in this case, they are fully fabricated websites that are meant to look like local news operations, and they are filled with junk. It's not just AI slop, it's actually convincing AI articles that target local communities, local issues, and candidates on the political stage. And he, of course, used ChatGPT, he used DALL-E to generate images. This guy, CopyCop, is certainly one to watch out for, but Russia wasn't alone. Iran, according to the Director of National Intelligence, also generated content, AI profiles, etc., in order to power their influence operations in the 2025 election. Now, I'm old enough to remember what influence operations used to look like. We all remember the days of the Internet Research Agency, the infamous troll farm in St. Petersburg, Russia, a big, Soviet-looking apartment building filled with hundreds of young Russians who spoke English, who understood American culture a little bit, and who could target us with their influence operations. Now, there are definitely still troll farms in Russia, and certainly, PR agencies for hire who are doing similar things like this all over the world. But it's gotten much easier. Now, where you used to require an army of people who had language skills, who had graphic design skills, you needed infrastructure to pump all this out there. Now you can run a pretty influential influence operation with one person, with a large language model, and with an AI image generator. One of the ways that we used to identify Russian influence operations was looking at the language that was being posted, right? Okay, you've got this suspicious-looking account, and it's doing things like dropping definite articles. Not to be crude, but it would say things like, in Soviet Russia, content posts you, right? Silly joke. That's not happening anymore. Those grammatical indications, idiomatic indications that somebody might be posting from a foreign country are totally gone, and that's pretty scary to me. It's really hard to detect this content at its face. We have to look at the back end now, which we always did before, but now it's even more imperative. Now, that being said, those were some real instances of AI being used in the 2024 elections, but a lot of the most influential influence operations actually were pretty old school. We had an incident in which the FBI and other US government agencies told the public about 2 videos that were going viral that alleged to show voter fraud. Those weren't deepfake videos. In that instance, Russian actors had actually hired actors to participate in those videos and pretend they were engaging in voter fraud, posing as illegal migrants. Then, of course, there was the Tenet media operation. So if you missed this, it's a really interesting one. Russia hired conservative YouTubers in order to post divisive content to their very large audiences and paid them a handsome sum, upwards of $100,000 per video, to do that. That's an old school influence operation. No LLMs, no AI detected, right? And then Iran also went for a hack and leak operation, a good old hack and leak to the Trump campaign. Luckily, this time around, learning from 2016, learning from 2020, there was less interest in those materials from the press, but they all still went pretty old school. So we had a mix, right? No big AI apocalypse, certainly not the deep fake that we were promised. But there was one influence operation, and I should say it's ongoing, that really has me worried. It's called the Pravda Network, and it's probably the most influential set of sites that you've never heard of. This is nothing to do with old school Pravda, the Soviet newspaper. It is a group of content aggregators that is taking Russian propaganda, translating it into local languages, and spitting it out on a whole host of domains around the world. This is what that map looks like. And one of my researchers at American Sunlight, Sophia Freuden, got really interested in this network last year. The French government had attributed it to Russia. A man in Crimea is operating it, occupied Crimea, of course. And Sophia started tracking the expansion of the network. So what France had attributed was in blue. Sophia started tracking its expansion to all of these other countries and territories, as well as a bunch of subdomains in languages that are not commonly spoken around the world, right? What was going on here? She was a little bit confused about it. And she was also confused because, frankly, the content wasn't very good. It was just replicated, as you can see here, from one website to another, not always translated into local languages. And curiously, the search function on the website was pretty bad. The scroll bar didn't work. it was just kind of a janky website, to use a highly technical term. What was going on? Then if you looked at some of the other languages with non-Latin characters, you'd see mistakes. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, right? The global coalition, misspelled here because it was translated from Russian language. You see things like Zelensky and Ukro experiment, which is something that the Russians say very frequently, getting mistranslated through these automatic translators. We, after some thinking, hypothesized that what was going on was a little bit surreptitious, a little covert, a little malign. 97 low-quality sites pumping out 3.6 million pieces of content per year. A little bit strange. And we thought, we think we know what's happening here. These sites aren't meant for human users. They're not meant for you and me. They are meant to seed these ideas within the models that are fueling ChatGPT and other large language models so that Russian propaganda will be spat out by these models. And indeed, we released a report in February alleging this. Many research organizations around the world, from Australia to Slovakia to here in the United States, have confirmed our findings that the Pravda Network is being cited by at least a dozen major chatbots when you ask it especially about Ukraine, but on a whole host of issues that are important to Russian foreign policy. And these are some of the signs that you can look for. But this is a pretty low-tech operation that has had a huge, huge impact on the answers that even chatbots like ChatGPT are sending back. We actually just recently checked both the 03 and 4.0 models, and even though we released this in February, it is still spitting out answers related to Pravda when you ask it questions about Ukraine, which is pretty scary to me. It's clear, as I think Gary Marcus is going to tell us in the next session, that AI can't reason. So we need to make sure that we are teaching human users how to do it. We just had a really good example of this right here in California a couple of days ago. Gavin Newsom, the governor, tweeted this picture from the San Francisco Chronicle of troops deployed to California sleeping on the floor. Many people immediately said it was fake, right? This is a highly politicized moment. We might expect that because everything that you don't like that's politically inconvenient these days is fake. Well, people also started saying that the image was misattributed, that it came from the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Where did they get this from? They got it from ChatGPT and X's AI, Grok, which was misattributing the image. Now, if you knew how to do a reverse image search, a pretty easy thing that in the digital age we should all know how to do, you would find very quickly that this image did not appear on the internet before June 9th, and that the first place it appeared was indeed the San Francisco Chronicle's website. But users were left to fend for themselves. They relied on Grok's faulty reasoning. And in some cases, they were just lying, right? That's the age that we find ourselves in today. And that's where I think all of us come into the room, right? This is not just on users. We shouldn't be putting the entire burden on people who are living busy lives, who, are trying to figure out how to keep their minds healthy amid so much doom scrolling. I think we all in the industry need to make it easier for people to navigate an increasingly complex information environment, one that is made more complex by artificial intelligence. And part of that is through content provenance. I have always really admired the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity and Adobe's Content Authenticity Initiative. These are initiatives that make it easier for users and for creators of content to tell how content has been edited, if at all. They append watermarks to images and videos so people can look at that. And that is such a great idea, putting the tools in the hands of the users. There's just two problems, right? One is scale. This is still not rolled out for many images that we see online. In fact, I hardly ever see it. And the second problem is education. Photographers, content creators, they might understand this stuff. Highly technical people like all of you might understand it. But the average person probably doesn't even know that an initiative like this exists. And we've got runway, right? But not that much. And so I think we need to educate users how to use tools like this. But also, for those of you representing AI companies in the room, I think it's really important. I know there's a race to gather as much data as possible, upload as much of the human experience as we can into the cloud and downloadable in a chatbot, but we really need to take reasonable steps to make sure these models aren't being exploited by bad actors like Russia, who's just seeding it with completely false propaganda. And then I also think it's important that AI companies acknowledge the limits of their tools, right? Acknowledge the fact that it does err. Remind users of that every time they use it. Remind them that they should be doing their due diligence, that they should be stopping and thinking about the content that is being served back to them. Right now, we don't have enough of that. And the truth is, our adversaries, whether they are in foreign countries or folks who are seeking to disrupt democracy here at home, are not going to stop using these tools. And I don't think it's crazy to say I don't expect any significant AI regulation to come out of our federal government anytime soon, right? So it's up to us to act, to protect our discourse. And that doesn't mean taking things off the internet. It doesn't mean any sort of censorship. To me, it is really about empowerment and education. And this is a quote from Thomas Jefferson that I have put into every presentation that I've done, every speech that I've made, pretty much, for the past 10 years. And I'm just going to read it to you because I think it's so powerful and prescient. I know of no safe depository of the ultimate powers of the society but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. Just like we've educated people about how the printing press works, just like we've educated them, not to trust an email from a Nigerian prince who's promising them $1 million, we need to educate people about how to use these important technologies. I am not an AI doomer. I use AI in my work to crunch through a lot of data that I would otherwise I would rather not be exposed to harmful, abusive content. But people need to be educated about how they're using these tools in order to thrive, not only in their careers, not only in the economy, but in our democracy today. So I thank you for your attention. It's a delight to be here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you so much.
That was great. Thank you so much, Nina. Nina Jankowicz.